Hi, everyone. Welcome to the PTI podcast. Today we have a very exciting guest, but first, I want to say hi to Emmanuel. Emmanuel, how are you going?
Hi. You don't sound excited to say hello to me.
Oh, sorry. I think I've just spoken to you too often. I just need an Emmanuel break, I think.
Hi, everyone. That's all right. I'm just playing. I like to play.
And today we have Amanda from Planned Partners. So, Amanda, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Amanda Winslade from Plan Partners. I'm the Business Relationship Manager for New South Wales. I work in the NDIS space. I've been here for quite some years now. I have lived experience with disability myself, and I'm also a carer. So I bring that perspective to my work every day.
Oh, that's so important. Yeah.
I know. Sorry, Mary. I know. But you're I'm just giving you a small plug here, right? I have worked with you for how long now? Like 3-4 years, something like that, like alongside each other.
Yeah.
And you are my go-to when it comes to talking about the gray areas of different things when trying to figure out what can and can't happen in certain scenarios. So you're the person I call, pick up the phone, be like, yo, Amanda, what's going on? Is this correct? Am I going crazy? So for anyone who doesn't know, Amanda knows a hell of a lot about this space and has been in this space for quite some time. And is the person who I call to go, hey, I'm just checking. Is this? Yes, this is this. Okay, no worries. So we're both, I think I am anyway, and I think we're both nerds and super passionate about this industry. So
Yes.
small little plug. I had to say that.
I unfortunately don't know Amanda. This is my first time meeting her, so we'll be getting to know her live. But I thought, Amanda, so do you want to give us like a plain English overview of the recent announcements and what you think that means for families, providers, participants?
Yeah, so with I suppose the recent announcements that have come out, you can see the whole NDIS landscape is completely changing. There's more consistency that's required, greater focus on accountability for providers. I think it's been such an open space for so long that now they're putting compliance in place that probably should have been there from the beginning. But for families, that means they really need to understand their NDIS plans, what they've been funded for, and what disability and impairment that funding is actually trying to help them with. So they want value for money, meaning that if a participant can build greater independence, if it's going to build their capacity, then that's where they're going to put the money into the NDIS plan.
That was originally what it was intended for, right? So like this isn't technically anything new. Like in theory, like, I mean, I know there's some rules changes and some things like that are happening, but from my understanding, when I first entered 7 years ago, they were always, let's call it the spirit. The spirit was always aimed at, let's build capacity, build a team, build something around this person that allows them to live as independently as they possibly can, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but I think because the landscape was so broad and it was open to everyone, there was a lot of people that come into the industry knowing that they could earn a great deal of money for a short period of support, but they weren't actually providing the support that was required. So I think while the changes are quite confronting, they actually needed to reset the system to where it was meant to be to protect the people that it was built for.
I agree. I mean, a lot of what's been discussed has been around how to control the impact of fraud whilst we build systems that, kind of catch that or whatever the case may be. So I know that funding periods and all these sort of things that have been talked about, again, everyone knows, everyone listens to any of the episodes, I repeat myself, implementation of any strategy is incredibly important. And that goes for any business, including the NDIS. But a lot of some of the things we've seen have been to kind of curb that, hey, what are you doing? Why are you, and some of the expectations from providers as well. Like, for example, is it a skill issue? Is it a funding issue? Having that balanced approach of what that looks like.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a skill issue in the way that no one's given education. There's no education piece that sits there. If I look at any other government organisation, the education goes for weeks on end. You get so many modules that you need to complete. You need to pass things to actually be able to look at participants and how you're going to implement things for them. Whereas with NDIS, that's not the case. Someone could go off the street, pick up a participant and start supporting them, and they don't have to have any qualifications, no background checks. An unregistered provider doesn't even need to have an NDIS worker check. And to me, that baffles my brain, because where is the protection?
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was
I
under the assumption
yeah.
that they had to. Sorry, Mary.
No, I've heard, and I meant to like, please like inform us about this. That service agreements aren't also necessarily required either. Like it's not a mandatory requirement to deliver service. Is that right? Or
It's never been a mandatory requirement to deliver service, but now NDIS, when they're asking for information, they're asking for the service agreement. So I think it's getting implemented in the background, but for years, no, it hasn't been.
so essentially someone can just, like you said, pick someone off the street and use whatever funding that they want to use, because there isn't even a contract between sort of the two parties. How does like a plan manager manage that situation?
With great difficulty. We have people that come into the scheme, they go and get an ABN and they don't even know the basis of doing an invoice. So to me, my brain goes crazy thinking, hang on a second, you're not finding out the basis of what it is to run a business, but you've started one, but you're going to provide quality supports to a person who needs it and may be unable to communicate whether they're actually receiving what they wanted to. But they get so excited that they've built that friendship that they don't stop it.
Look, there's there's this whole thing about choice and control going on, and all this sort of stuff, and I respect anyone who's trying to get in and help people, right? But I do agree that there's a basic level of, I guess, a basic level of understanding of what you're walking into that should occur. Now I say that purely from the perspective of the vulnerable participants we support. For me, we've been doing this 7 years, so it's me personally 7 years and Ability Connect 10. So, but we've come across a lot of providers that are willing to and not opposed to learn what needs to happen and why and how, and that's never an issue. But I guess it's those times where they don't have a support coordinator, or it's just them and the participant, and then they're, what happens then? Because there is no accountability. And I guess that's what it comes down to, because there are amazing sole traders, amazing independent support workers, amazing.
Absolutely. Some of them have come from bigger providers who were not doing the right thing. So it's not a one size fits all. It can be anyone that comes into the industry, and if they've got the passion and they've got the right reasons, they need the right resources. They need to know how to write a case note. I can't tell you, I was an operations manager for a few years, and in that time, the amount of case notes and incident reports I've seen, and I was just trying to understand where the gap actually was. But it's the education. No one sits down and shows you how to write to a government standard. And I was privileged enough to work in the government for a few years. So that's where my understanding come from, was having to write that way. But in the NDIS space, that education piece, they want it. They want you to show that documentation. But what does a good case note look like? What is it meant to have in there? And because I have someone and they're talking about, they've taken the participant to the park, or they've done this, and they think, yep, that's capacity building. That's what I'm here for. What did they learn at the park? Why did they go to the park? How long did it take you to get out of the house? And what were the triggers on the way? Like, they're missing all of the key things. They may be simple, and they may be small steps, but they're the key pieces on where the participant's funding actually comes from.
And for me, that's data. I know that sounds crazy and everyone hears me say it all the time, but that is data. That's the data the NDIS is craving. That's the data of saying, okay, well, for, let's just say 50 days out of the year, we've gone and done this. This has worked. This is the progression. This is what we've been doing. This is why we've been doing it. This is how it links to the goal. This is how it links to what the allied health professional is, the strategy, the overarching, and this is the long-standing goal we're going for. And maybe this person can do, they can talk to 3 or 4 different people now, where they before couldn't, or whatever the case may be. Obviously, it's very different. But all that information, that data, is super important. But you also raised another question in my head. Sorry, off the cuff. Welcome to my brain. But there's often this misconception about, plan managers saying no to invoices. But that idea of case notes, information, correct invoicing is often the barrier, from what I've found. So what I mean by that is I know that you guys need certain information in order to fund something, or to say, yep, okay, I can understand. For example, in certain cases, if there's a certain service that's being required, like perhaps a letter of support, or perhaps something is required to say, yep, this is why you're asking for it, or this is the purpose of what you're asking for, to tick off, in some cases, the reasonable necessary criteria and so on. So the information and how it's being communicated, even a case note or something, or the layout of the invoice, having line items on there, or having detail of what you're doing and when and why, and it really does help you, right? Like it really goes, okay, cool. Let me get that for you.
Yeah, the amount of questions I answer on a daily basis when someone's forgotten to put in service dates, they haven't put in the times that they service, they haven't put in a line item, they've put in the incorrect line item, they've put in the incorrect price, and it can be, or they've added GST. That one happens a lot. They add GST when they're not meant to, and it automatically gets rejected, and they get so mad because it's happened so many times. Yes, we get blamed for it as the plan manager, but really it's your data that's incorrect in the first place that's causing this to actually slow down. Then you see the cash flow issues that actually come from it, adds to the stressful situation, and we're holding the money. But yes, you gave us the first invoice 10 days ago that was wrong, but you only gave me the correct one an hour ago. So it's like, where is that happy medium in the middle, and when do you recognize that you need to have these processes in place as a business before you start laying the blame on plan managers?
And with the payment process, like what does that look like from the back end? Like, do you have to kind of like scrutinize, whether or not, it's an appropriate use of funding, or is it just purely just checking invoice like details? Like, what does that entail?
So it would depend what service it was for, to what kind of scrutiny that we have to have on it. But now, with the new rules that they're having for plan managers, we will have to check a lot more than what we already are, which means invoices may be held up longer. But at the moment, we check to make sure that there hasn't been, some people are charging category 9, so that's your innovative community access, so the increased community access, and they're charging 12 hours a day. That category was never designed for 12 hours a day. So they're using that funding for something that it's not intended for. So the system picks up when there's things that look out of place. So we have measures that are in place in the system that will show us if someone's overclaimed. So if there's more than 24 hours service in a day, if someone's used a line item that's meant to be for an hour and they've charged 6. So there's different things that are in place in the system, but we have to keep building it. It has to keep going because the legislation keeps changing.
Yep.
That must be like, how do you like, do you get any warnings about any of these changes coming? Like, no,
none at all. And that's actually the funniest thing, because as a plan manager, like, they release the schedule of the new pricing schedule, and we get it at the same time everyone else does, and we have to update our system to be in line. And they didn't even give the CSV file this year until the 30th of June, was it? And it had to be implemented by the 1st.
Did you notice that was on a different page this year?
Yes.
Yeah, it was in the media releases or something. It was different. It was on a different page.
It was.
I freaked out. I was like, oh no CSV. I'm like, how am I supposed to update my forecasting tool? I'm like, and I started writing it out manually, and someone sent to me. I'm like, oh my God, you just saved me 10 hours worth of work. It was great.
Yeah.
So you guys are scrambling all the time, I imagine, then.
Yeah, that when the changes get released, it's like instant for us. So even the new ones that just come out with the short-term accommodation, where they recently just changed it from STA to STR back to STA, because we like acronyms and just changing things around to make sure you're following the roller coaster. Yeah.
They've also changed the name, haven't they? So they've done, so what is it now? You've got pricing arrangements, which is essentially the old last year's 2526 financial year, and that's all the rules are. Now you've got
the pricing schedule,
and then you've got the CSV is called something different now, pricing catalog.
No, it's the support catalog. That's what it was called before. Yeah.
Yeah, but the CSV used to sit under in the price, like was it always a support catalog? I just thought it was.
Yeah, it was a
Okay,
support
well,
catalog, but they changed. Yeah, you're reflecting on the pricing schedule.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what they
Yeah.
changed. They changed that name and the guidelines that go with it.
Yeah. Right. Because I know we kind of, because that's what we do. We kind of went down on a rabbit hole. But in terms of the overarching changes, announcements that have kind of happened over the past years, was there anything you kind of wanted to, make sure people knew about?
Look, I would say your cancellations is something that I would focus on. I've been focusing on it for a while, but I think people miss the mark on cancellations a lot. And if you can tell anything by their therapy budget, they are focusing on cancellations, non-face-to-face services, face-to-face travel. They're getting the codes put in there, and I can foresee that being on every category in the future because they want to know that information. So with short-term cancellation, a lot of people don't realize that you can only charge it if you have rostered someone on for that shift, they've cancelled within that time, and you don't reallocate that worker to a different participant. So if you are paying out of pocket for that worker, then you can claim short-term cancellation. If you aren't entitled to it. But people automatically think they cancelled, bill it. But when the NDIS come and do an audit, you have to have that matching roster that matches where that person was and they weren't allocated to someone else.
And so I was going to ask, how do they hold that provider accountable? Because, like, for example, let's just say that person's on a roster. They've got his roster, and because people's rosters can look different, right? So what level? So for example, let's just say it was a paper roster. Well, kind of like, because they're a smaller organization. How do you know?
Well, I suppose now that's where all the transparency is coming into it because NDIS is honing in, their audits are going to look different. I suppose that's why the landscape's been turned on its head, because so many things were implemented, the guidelines sat there, but the implementation didn't. So really, it was like a good faith thing, because off the top of my head, I can't tell you when NDIS checked it, but they are starting to do an internal audit of their system for the last 12 months. So I'm waiting to see what that actually comes out of that.
I know I know they've been doing random invoicing checks across the board, and I remember them sending us 10 invoices that they wanted us to randomly look. I'm like, no problem. It took me all of 5 minutes to send them all the information, but that's just because but they and then they came back with and this was the interesting part, because I find it like sometimes I think there needs to be a cleanup of how the information is communicated and shared. So one of those invoices was through a plan manager, and we didn't know, but it was part paid by the NDIS. So the NDIS had sent it to us as if it was part paid, but we got it in one. So, but we had to then go through the plan manager but we didn't get, from the NDIS didn't give us reference numbers. So then we had to go through the plan manager to work out time that it took us hours for that one. They sent all the information initially, but it didn't make sense on our side because our invoice was to us was fully paid, but the plan manager had it part paid. It was an interesting time, but I can see that they're doing a lot of that.
Yes. Plan partners actually give you remittance advice on your dashboard, so you can get them anytime with their reference number. Yeah, that was a little plug. There you go.
We'll see. I know my mistake now then.
Yeah, you should have been with plan partners.
Yeah, right.
But they do have a pilot program. It is on their website, and it's their new system that they're looking at launching with integrity as part of it. And that's why you'll get the random integrity checks, and they will check the invoices and the case notes and everything that matches that invoice.
I like it. I'll be honest. I really like it. I mean,
it
was nothing out of my day except that one, because it was a bit confusing because their part. But I was like, here you go. And I had to chase them up. I'm like, how did we go? Was there any feedback? No, it was fine. All right, no worries. Thank you.
I'm wondering about like cancellations from like a therapy perspective. Like, you had like a session booked or something. And like if like in terms of like, because we're aware of like you can replace that cancellation with other work. But I'm sort of wondering, like, if you had your, calendar set out for that day, with report writing and other appointments and that sort of thing, and then you are able to like push everything up it still leaves a gap at the end of the day. And I'm just sort of wondering, like, what exactly does it mean when people say that you can replace it with other work? Because there's always, like, at least from our perspective, there's always then it just moves that gap somewhere else, but there's still a gap, if that makes sense, because there's a set amount of work that you have to do.
So if you've still got that gap in your day, which is say you had a 2-hour therapy session for a participant and you didn't replace that 2 hours with billable work, then that would still be classified as a cancellation. But if you then were able to do report writing for another participant for that 2 hours, and you still had, so if that gap at the end of your day was always there, and it didn't change the amount of hours that you actually had in the day that you were working, the participant that you had, you wouldn't be able to charge them for the cancellation if you replaced it with report writing that was billable.
So on our end, I might operate fairly similarly to Allied Health, to be honest, because when we're looking at any kind of cancellations, usually because of a face-to-face meeting, right? So in our case, we've driven out, we've physically
Yes.
left, gone to see them. That's when because there's no other time that can be spent when you're driving. If we don't leave the office, then there's nothing. If we are driving to see people and we're physically gone, that time is gone. Again, it's not the full time that was allotted, because as soon as we get back, realistically, you're on to something else. So there's nothing changes. But that's how it's kind of typically been organized. It's like, okay, well, I'm out there. We usually screenshot GPS and all that sort of stuff to show, but like out there, if we haven't left the office, then don't worry about it. It's just we're on to the next thing. It's no problem. But because realistically, we got so much to do, it's not an issue.
Yeah, I think there's always a lot of work. That's
yes.
never ending. I always say that the landscape's continuing to change. I can't even speak now. The landscape is continuing to change, and there's always something, a new guideline that you've got to get your head around. So.
Oh, 100%. And just out of curiosity, because I know we've got some questions as well that I wanted to get to, but the where do you think all these changes in reality end up in terms of impact? So is it providers, participants? Is it a mixture of both? Like, where does this ultimately, like, who's going to feel it the most?
Currently, I think actually both. Providers are definitely feeling it. I've seen some really good providers who have just left the industry. And I think that's probably the saddest part about it, is that they're driving this to make sure that the scheme is sustainable, but it's not going to be sustainable if they don't have the workforce to sustain it. And the participants are losing, I can't even think of what the word would be.
Confidence?
Hope. Yeah,
Hope.
Yeah, in the system, because originally the system was there, it was built around them for what they need, and now it's all about the integrity, the paperwork, the compliance, and it doesn't sit with them, because they're like, hang on, can I go to my shopping trip? Can I go to the community access that I have? Like, these are the questions that they're asking. And especially when NDIS says, we're going to cut community access, instantly they're in fear. So you can't derail some and expect them to still have hope in a system.
Yeah, it's I mean, I'm not saying, like, I feel for all sides. In saying that, however, I mean, I think any provider and all of the ones that I've spoken to are welcoming increased scrutiny, right? Especially ones that have been. And I do feel for new businesses, because it's a hell of a time to get in. And I'm not saying don't do it, but just do your homework for sure. But these idea of extra scrutiny and all these things, I think we work with vulnerable people at the end of the day. I mean, full stop. We should be held to a standard. If you look at the aged care standards and how hard that is, and kind of what's happening, I think it's a nice change. But the implementation of it and the stepped out model and how this is all going to happen is for me the interesting part, because you don't want to lose good people. You don't want to lose people who are going to be pushed out of the industry, and they're doing great work. It's just they need time to adapt, or they need something, But I also do appreciate that it's a responsibility on both sides, that we need to also be better, quicker, more efficient, more accountable. What's the word? No, more transparent with the information data, and that's true. So I foresee a stronger emphasis on good systems, which is right up my alley because I'm a nerd and I love good systems and processes. So I mean, it's an interesting time, but it's the thing that I get concerned about is the impact on participants and how that's going to end up. And people that don't have support coordinators, they don't have access to you, Amanda, or Mary. Like, what happens then? They're the people that I get, like, who's helping them navigate this updated scrutiny or the need for all these changes, or when the 1st of January, when the 10% reduction for non-registered support work providers come in, like, and how that plays out. Or, like, who's helping them?
Yeah, I would love to know. And I think that is the massive gap that NDIS doesn't look at, is education. It is massive. And I know that we're taking a massive step towards education and educating people, the community, whether it be participants, carers, support coordinators, service providers. We're looking at education on every part, and why our education will only be about, I suppose, how we implement the changes and how we see them. It's better than nothing, because at the moment NDIS is throwing out all these new rules, and I just think to myself, imagine if this started with education. Imagine if they showed you what a good system looked like, or they had a system that every provider had to use, similar to what they do in disability employment or IEA now, where you have their system, you have their participants, you have their reports, and it's all in the one system. You submit your progress notes on their system. And I'm like, and I know that they now do progress notes for support coordination on there, but imagine if everything sat on there. Imagine, Mary, as an allied health professional, if you could go on there and see previous reports, so you could put the dots together and find out where the deterioration actually come from.
That is miracle land.
I think like in a hypothetical way, like I can totally see that, but I'm just thinking about, because like in hospital systems, for example, they kind of operate on this like one system. At least the last time I was, I don't know what it's like now, it's been several years, and part of the issue was that as psychs, you were told highly confidential information that they didn't want shared with everybody else, and there was no way to partition that out, and so you had to almost create separate notes for like internal systems versus external. So I guess, yes, I think that's amazing, but I think as long as there's a little caveat in there where like little highly sensitive information is only seen by very particular people. So
I mean, there'd be simple solution. Yeah.
Oh, they
do
have
amazing.
That. So in your notes section for the government system, you can actually select if it's confidential, highly confidential, or where it actually sits, and it would put a lock on the note. So I don't know how much they've improved it, but that's how it was years ago. So I can only assume that has improved over the years, and they would have that access. Because yes, there's things that they tell you that they don't want anyone else to know, but it's about their safety at the end of the day. So if all of that was in the one system, it's so easy to reflect back on.
Moving towards a similar system in health, I believe, where they're trying to centralize it. So I wonder if maybe it's on the horizon as well, because it seems like different departments are starting to do that. So I'm not sure. Have you guys heard any whispers about a centralized place?
Look, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I would actually be very excited for it.
I know Pace, which I believe is run by Salesforce, definitely has the capability. I mean, Salesforce is huge. That has a lot of functionality. It just depends on what the end game is. I mean, I don't see them, like, for example, as a support coordinator, sometimes, and it's been a pet peeve that I've spoken about with you, Amanda, is they break it down into funding periods. And let's just say there's level 3 and psychosocial recovery coaching, or level 2, whatever, in the same funding. I don't know how they've broken it down. I know how they've broken it down for the year based on planner notes, but I have no idea how they've broken it down per funding quarter. So there's definitely some tweaking and improvements. And when PACE first came out, they were funding things and I had no idea what they were funding. So the old system actually had more information than the new one, and in some cases still does. And there's a lot of things, like, for example, I still think that there should be an opportunity to lock funds on PACE to certain providers if a participant wants to. because they're running the risk now of any provider. And we're talking about scrutiny, and we're also talking about safety. We're talking about vulnerable participants. It's you. If someone just calls up and does some kind of endorsement, then now you've got two support coordinators out of the same category, or a random provider coming out of, and it's a bit, messy. And for providers, then that places them at a little risk. Anyway, there's always improvements though. I will say this: when I first started, I had no access to plans. I was forecasting based on original plans and then trying to work out how much was spent by communicating to every single provider based on their accounts, and then putting it back in. That's where we got so good at forecasting, because we didn't have a choice. We had no access. We had no idea what was available. We had no idea other than the original plan, because there was one button that needed to be ticked that was never being ticked. And so now is like heaven compared to when I'm telling you now, I was waiting 8 months for plans. This is heaven. Like, as much as we talk about improvements, the improvements we've actually made in the industry is quite big. In my opinion.
Well, we've had improvements too. We can see stated supports and what they've actually written as a stated support, so that's an improvement. I would love if we got a copy of the whole plan, because the amount of times people say to me, "Why do you need this plan? You already have it." No, I don't actually. No. It's a confidential plan, and I can see the funding, but I can't see what's written on the plan. So if they share that would be fantastic. But for now, we're very happy that we can see stated supports.
I like that idea of having a documents tab where they can put key information that, because realistically, the only people that have access to PACE and the portal is the participant, plan manager, and the support coordinator, realistically. Unless you give you can give different varying levels, but that'd be a good one. But we're diverting, which I like. So one of the questions that we were going through was, should participants be worried right now, or is this more about staying informed and preparing for future changes?
I think participants definitely need to stay informed. That would be my go-to, is what I always tell them, is stay informed, know your rights as a participant. And the NDIS is definitely calling participants at the moment and doing reassessments. That's noted. I've had that conversation a multitude of times. So know your rights as a participant. If the NDIS do call you to do a reassessment, you are not obligated to take that phone call at that time. You can ask for it to be rescheduled, and you can ask what the intention of the phone call is. And definitely you can ask for it to be in writing. So you are not obligated to give them the information on the spot. If they ring you and say, do you have some time to talk? We just need to talk about your plan to see if it's working for you. You can say yes, but I would like to schedule that because I want to talk to my plan nominee, or I want to talk to my support coordinator, or I want to get reports and submit them to you before we have this conversation. So knowing your rights as a participant is definitely where it needs to sit. And speaking to your service providers to make sure that the services that you're actually getting are helping your disability or impairment. If you're getting personal training and you were meant to be going and communicating with a group of people to build your communication skills, like, you're in the wrong place. So going back and seeing what you were actually funded for and how it's meant to help you, and know where you have started from. So document your progress. If you look at Jimmy and he was going to make a sandwich and Jimmy didn't know how to make a sandwich, and then all of a sudden 5 weeks later Jimmy still couldn't make a sandwich, were you looking at the progress, or were you just looking at the sandwich as a whole? Because did Jimmy get the butter out of the fridge, or did he get the Vegemite out of the cupboard? Did he choose what he wanted on the sandwich? Like, there's so many things that need to be put into what you're actually doing. So I just say, as a participant, have the conversation with your providers, know what an individual support plan is, because each provider should have one for you, so you can see your starting point, and then you can revisit it in 6 or 12 weeks to see where you've actually progressed from and where you've progressed to. And if it's not working, change it. Instead of staying there and doing 52 weeks of it, coming to an NDIS review and then going, actually, Jimmy doesn't know how to make a sandwich. find that out at 6 weeks and revert to something else.
It sounds
You
like
made me
it all
hungry
comes back
with-
to data. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
did think
it
about
does.
a Vegemite sandwich just then. I thought, oh, imagine some fresh bread and a Vegemite sandwich.
You're making me hungry, Amanda. The only other thing I wanted to kind of add to that, we found it, look, for people that don't have or maybe don't know where to start, I just want to encourage them. The NDIS is not a scary place. Go into the local office and talk to them. If you don't know where to start, just go to them. We've done it many times where we've been stuck, and they are really friendly. They want to help you. You just need to go and talk to them. I mean, I'm talking about in situations where you're maybe you're on your own, you don't have access to a plan manager, or you've just got this plan and you don't know what to do with it. Go and talk to them. They'll help you. Like, if you don't know anywhere else, go and talk to them. The people at the front office are super friendly. They will help you, and they'll point you in some directions where you can start getting help. Because I find that often, instead of just sitting there and going, I don't know what to do, just go and talk to them. There are plenty of services, there are plenty of people in that office in the NDIS that will help you, and they are there for a reason. They get jobs like this because they want to help people. And we've done it many times where we've directed families, gone in with them when they didn't have support coordination, or even in situations where we haven't gotten answers. We've just walked in and said, hey, can you help us? We really need some help. And they've been able to go and figure out what's going on. Just a small little, like, I find that it's not a common thing. We can go in there. It's okay. They're nice people.
Yeah, and you don't even have to have your reports or anything. They've actually got a community access now where you can go in there and you can sit down with the NDIS and go through what your day-to-day looks like, and then they can point you in the right direction of what you would need to get to access NDIS, or if they think that there's something else in the community, a mainstream service that would be more suited to you. They have that knowledge, and they have local knowledge when you go to a local office. So yeah, don't be scared of them.
Or if all else fails, just call me or Amanda.
Yes.
We're more than happy to help. But no, it is a good thing because they are very friendly people. Do you have any messages for families, or sorry, actually, I'm going to ask you this. How are you, from your perspective, how are families, participants, providers, how are they feeling about everything at the moment? Are they overarchingly positive, negative? Like, what's the overarching feel out there that you're seeing?
I think there's fear.
Okay.
There's a lot of fear out there, and I think providers are doing work that they're not sure if they're going to get paid for, and participants are trying to get services. And if you look at remote or really remote areas, they don't have services in there. So now they're in dire of where their actual services are going to come from. So the fear is real. But I think the more we work together and the more we collaborate and try and find these branches and see where things actually fit, the better off that they're going to be.
Yeah, I agree 100%. What about a message to families? Anything that you think that they, you want to say to them and say, look, if it's not all doom and gloom, or something like that.
Don't be scared to ask. There is no stupid questions. I think, when you don't know the information, when government use lingo that is not common everyday communication, don't be scared to ask what it actually means. So if you've got an NDIS planner and they tell you this is what you've been funded for, you've got community access, you have the right to ask which impairment is that for, and what is the outcomes that we're looking to see. And you can ask them to work on that with you. So I suppose my biggest thing is to empower yourself, whether it's the participant, their family, a plan nominee, even the support coordinators and service providers. Know what your participants' impairments are and know the outcomes that you're going to get from the services. So before you sign up to a service provider, have the conversation of what outcome do you think I will get from this? So I think information and just not being scared to ask, because we all want the best for everyone. Well, a lot of us, I know we do. Always probably too hard in there going, go get it. But yeah, I think that's my thing, is just information. It's power, it's empowerment. So, and for a participant, knowing what your impairment is and knowing how you're going to work to an outcome for it. It never has to lead to complete independence. It never has to make the impairment go away. But if it can progress and help you be more independent, then I'm all for you knowing that information.
I like to ask questions. It is the fundamental core of what I try to keep across the board is don't think it's a silly question. Nothing is a silly question. Ask the question. If you assume, that's where the danger comes. There's a lot of gaps or misunderstandings. Just ask the question. I mean, just in general in life, I think that's a great advice. But in this case, with everything happening, just ask. Don't be afraid. Ask someone, anyone, everyone. If you don't understand, ask.
And anyone who's been in a room with me knows that they're going to be talking and I'm going to go, oh, I have a question.
Yes. I remember I've been on it and I love it. But that's the point of this, though. That is genuinely the point. I mean, conversations, information sharing, asking questions. Sorry, I don't understand that. It's not about looking silly. It's about there's so much going on. I think anyone and everyone should be doing that consistently, down to the core of understanding your participants. If you want to go into a more clinical model of unmet needs, and yes, I'm learning and paying attention, Mary, when you talk. So, but it's asking, understanding who you're working with, why they're doing what they're doing, what they want to get out of their life. You know, in cases of information, asking the NDIS, what do you mean by that? What does that actually mean? How can I actually use this service, or how can I use this funding? Ask the question.
Yeah, and even if they use words that you don't know what they are, people do that to me all the time still. And sometimes I know real big words and sometimes I definitely don't. And I just say, whoa, that was a big word. What does it mean? So, and it doesn't matter what room I'm in, what professional setting it is, I'm going to ask them what they mean by what they said so I can interpret it the way that it was intended. So never be scared to say, oh, I don't actually understand what that means. Can you say it in a different way? Because
and if you're a bit anxious, in those documentations they do have definitions at the top, so those like common words that they use will have broader, more like easily understood interpretations, as well as easy to read documentation, if that's sort of more your vibe, if speaking up in the moment is a bit hard, or even a support person to come in to these meetings might be helpful and they can advocate on your behalf as well.
1000% agree. And now I'm mindful of time because I will literally talk to Amanda and Mary for hours. So is there anything else, Amanda, you wanted anyone listening to know about the changes, or anything in particular you think is quite important?
I think maybe for providers, we just need to understand what services we're actually providing. We're not all under the umbrella of offering every service there is. Know where your niche is, know what you're good at, and provide that service, and know how to document it. And if you don't know how to document it, ask someone, because a lot of us have worked with data in the background, and we can give you examples on what a good case note looks like, what a good incident report looks like, and then you can train your staff. But the people on the front line need to know the implementations that are actually happening at the back end.
Oh, couldn't have said it better myself. Now, what about if people wanted to find you or work with, like, how do they get in contact with you, or if they want to work with Plan Partners, and also, is there anything you guys got going on that you wanted to let people know about?
Yeah, so with Plan Partners at the moment, we're doing a massive education piece. So we have a webinar coming up on the 23rd of July at 12 o'clock. So you can definitely find that on Eventbrite and join in. And we're implementing the NDIS reform in practice. So I suppose that gives you a little insight into where I was just coming from. But yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me. It's just my name, amanda.winslade@planpartners.com.au. Or my mobile number is 0455 336 751. There is no stupid questions. You can ring me. You can ask me anything. Your participants don't need to be with Plan Partners. I'm happy to educate you in any way that I can. And if I don't know the answer, I will be the first to admit it, because practice what you preach.
Yep, but I've never heard you not have the answer, just quietly, not yet. So I mean, I take up that. I call you all the time, and I think it's, to be honest with you, it's a thing that I've always done since I started. And those people that are willing to pick up the phone call, or even to call me and have a chat, has been absolutely invaluable in terms of me getting to know this industry and trying to help people. So everyone should be doing it. But are you? I'll get some details off of you after this, and we'll put it into our post if that's okay with you about your event, the webinar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
I know,
Amazing.
just giving my number out then, I felt like, that old ad that was on TV, like 1-300-99.
Oh, now you've got that jingle in my head. I don't know what it is. Oh no.
I know,
think it was
that's
the
all
window.
my brain could come up with.
Windows,
Oh
yeah.
no. Oh no. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I think I did pretty good to keep it in a certain time frame. Otherwise, I know last time we spoke for way longer than this, so
Yeah.
I can't help it. But thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And for anyone else, please, again, if there's anyone you want us to talk to, any particular questions you want answered, or maybe you have some follow-up questions for Amanda and you're like, hey, I'd love for her to get back on and talk about this, let us know. But other than that, for now, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for
Thank you.
having me.
Bye.